Hello and welcome to Complementary Colors. I am here in the studio with Cara in the afterglow of what we call NeoCon. During NeoCon, we met up with Doug. Doug Shapiro is the Vice President of Research and Insights at OFS and has over 15 years of experience working closely with both product designers and interior designers on a global scale. He served on the International Board of IIDA from 2015 to 2020 and is one of those people that continues to engage with youth in both the IIDA members, student members, but also is an advisory board on the Kansas State University Interior Architecture and Industrial Design Department. So I thought that was really cool. On top of the fact that I learned that he's also a published children's book author. During NeoCon, we got to connect with him in the OFS showroom, and they have this pod that they call Room, and it had walls that were made of upcycled plastic water bottles that actually reduced the noise by 30 decibels, which if you watch the video, I think you can understand how crazy it was outside of that pod that we were recording in and how clear you could hear us. So I thought that was pretty cool. But Doug is also the host of Imagine a Place podcast. Imagine a Place explores a powerful role that place plays in our lives by gathering and sharing authentic voices, insightful perspectives, and stories of places designed to inspire, support, and connect people. This was definitely one of our favorite conversations, so we really hope you enjoy listening. Yes, please. So we're excited to be here live at NeoCon in one of your booths, and we'd love to ask you a couple questions, and one being your podcast. Can you tell us like how that started and where you want to go with that and what your plans are?
What your end goal is?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, it's an honor to be here with you all as well. I was excited when Mike connected us, and I started Googling you, and I saw all the work you did.
These girls are crazy.
You are doing so well. But yeah, so Imagine a Place. It started almost 4 years ago now. Mm-hmm. Over 4 years ago. I've been doing this for a while. And it really started out of just genuine curiosity around the people of the industry. Like, I started to meet people, and we thought, how do we focus on the stories that aren't being told? So we started to talk to people just in our network that we knew had beautiful life stories, how they know to design. And then that kind of tumbled into research and insights and all these things. And it's almost like I can't keep up with as much there is to talk about in this industry. So, once a week we're putting out new content, and it explores everything from the power of place to just the people who design them and their own personal histories.
I love that, because you're taking a concept that we already are connected because we love design, right? Yes. We're in this industry for a reason, but you're kind of pulling out everybody's individual whys, which are so different.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I mean, it's like you listen to the podcast, you're like, wow, that's your background? Like Jay that you interviewed?
Oh yeah.
I was like, I know you, but I didn't know that. Like, it's really cool to like be able to connect us in a different way, even though we had been connected before. So it's powerful, the connection piece. But
I agree.
Yeah.
When you were talking about people's stories, I was thinking about recently at ILFI. I don't know if you've ever attended that conference.
I have not. The Future Living?
Yeah.
It's like the mouthful.
The International Living Futures Institute. It is a mouthful.
Yeah.
But that said, there was this really great concept that kind of dovetails into storytelling, but storytelling about materiality and like the human story within that material. And I know it's hard to do that when we're talking about like poly materials, right. But when we're talking about natural materials, there's like stories embedded or historic materials. And so I think it's kind of led us to try to reframe reuse in that way. We used to say grandma's so hot right now, right? Like, let's bring it back. Like, let's make reuse sexy. I'm wondering, in the interviews and the people that you have met and you get so enriched by their stories, has there been a time where you're like, oh my gosh, like this material has such a rich history that we have to tell that story? Have you encountered material stories?
100%. For me, wood is that story.
Wood.
Okay, so there was, I'll tell a couple things really quick. There's a table that's in our corporate office, and it was actually built out of wood that was taken from a building that was torn down. That building was our first factory.
Oh, wow.
And that building was 100 years old. Mm-hmm. And it takes, and this is an oak table, it takes about 100 years for an oak tree to mature. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking that acorn went into the ground about 200 years ago.
That's a good point.
And I'm thinking there's
Mind blown.
Mind blown. There's
All
no
that
other
energy.
material on the planet that can be around that long where you can take it, you can reshape it, make something beautiful. That were metal,
Forever.
plastic, just wouldn't at all have held up that way. And so I do think there's something special about wood. In fact, there was a gentleman I hosted from a company he founded called Cambium Carbon. And he takes trees that have fallen in significant places. And, this is like a tree that was visible from Martin Luther King's famous speech.
Oh, amazing.
Wow.
This was a tree that was on a Civil War battlefield, whatever it might be. And he uses that wood, and you can buy it. It's just fascinating.
Oh, I love that. I mean, my hippie will be showing here for a minute, but I love it so hard because it's like it holds in it the energy of those moments.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And for us to be lucky and honored enough to have that energy in our presence, I think that is such a beautiful way to say that, like, we're not just reusing it because we need to save our planet. We're also reusing it because, that energy just enriched our lives.
Yeah.
I feel that way with metal. I love the way different metals patina, where you can see touch moments, because then it's like the Blarney Stone, right? Gross as it is, you look at it and you're like, lips are the only thing that made that curve, It's like that hand, that touch, how many hands touched there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well said.
Another question, kind of, looping into this carbon story, would be, do you think we have everything we need, or do you think we need everything we have?
Oh my gosh.
She's got the powerful question.
That's a powerful question. So let's start with the second part. Do we need everything we have? Certainly not. Certainly not. I feel like I can put a period at the end of that sentence and be like, we don't even have to talk anymore about that. But do we have everything we need? Here's what I would like to see more of. It's just grace. When I am at my happiest, I feel like I give people the benefit of the doubt. I know it's not really a design conversation.
Oh, it is.
It is.
All the time.
It is.
Absolutely.
And if you give people grace, I feel like that's when you can find your own peace.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it keeps things moving, like that energy. It keeps the conversation going. I think that's part of, the new age hippies of us that are trying to save the planet. You think about it, it's like, well, if you hit them with doomsday, who wants to talk to you about it? Nobody, But if you hit them with some grace and some, hey, we're all curious amateurs together.
Yeah, and not everybody understands what we do, right?
Yes.
I think the interior design profession itself was only recognized in the 90s as actually being a legit profession. So we're
Standardized,
babies.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Having grace with those that invite you over to help them with their kitchen, is like, okay, but I do commercial buildings, just having that ability to teach with gracefulness and not, man, don't you know what I do for a living?
I was thinking just about, I've been kind of on this emotional train path here lately. Just grace kind of enters me into that subject. I was just thinking about like the objects we design. I've interviewed a lot of people about this. The emotion that you have while you design comes out in those objects. And actually, I don't want to make this into a product pitch, right? But there is a product that we had recently where the design brief was just kind of a list of feelings that we wanted to evoke.
I love that.
And it was like, when I'm here, I want to feel like a mentor, not a manager. When my guest is here, I want them to feel like they work with me, not for me, right? Sure. So it's all these feelings that we put in this brief, and I really feel like the designer who worked with that brief did such a great job of capturing that emotion in the product details and the choices that they made. And so for me, I just feel like, we could probably bring more feeling and emotion into just the early parts of design.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also I would say beyond that, it's being careful where you create from. So if you're creating from, I have to meet a deadline, I have to put out the newest product, I have to make sure I'm thinking about circularity, I have to make sure I'm thinking about sustainability, but also make it functional and cheap and all the things. It's like, why don't you start instead with making something you're proud of?
I love that.
And making sure you're creating from a space that you want to have your product emote from?
We have our fur, like if we had a tagline, but it's more so like an internal mantra that we check ourselves with whether we're getting work or we find ourselves there, or we is rock and hard play. We always ask, or we ask each other, we're like, is that joyous? Is that authentic? So if it's not joyous and if it's not authentic, we shouldn't be doing it.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
What a simple checklist that could make things.
It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, I think that's awesome.
But it sounds like that's something your company is invested in and making sure that your products are emoting in the appropriate way because you're creating from a different spot.
Yes. I mean, I will tell you, I'll be honest, like, I feel like the amount of emotion that was in this brief is new for us.
Really?
You know, it was, so the person who did it, it was our owner's daughter, right? She's very conscious of not wanting to project status.
Yeah.
And so for her, like, this design brief, she calls it a cry for help. And I was like,
wow.
like, what if every design brief was a cry for help? Like, you know, like, how would things look different?
Instead of a call for action, a cry for help really hits you in a way like, let me come alongside and
And be a team rather than just be led. Yeah.
I also think that with OFS, your guys' history as a company, it's, I think, the only, from my knowledge, that shows well. Like the Well Building Institute, too. It's like you're not just designing furniture for the space, you're designing for the place. And we had a whole podcast on like the definition between what space and place is to people with like public art and how we how do we go to school? What would make that something that you want to experience? And I love that you tick all of those boxes when you're showing your how your product solutions are going. It's not just LEED, it's not just chemical health, it's the building and how it supports you and the person. So I think that's really not to that. That's so
we love it here.
Thank you so much. You know, I do feel like as the industry grows, as manufacturers grow and design firms, like, we almost grow like people where we have to layer knowledge. Because I've been thinking about this, like, priorities.
Yeah.
Like, everything's important, then nothing's important, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been asking guests, I've been exploring, like, well, what does matter? Like, there's well-being, there's sustainability, there's like productivity, there's all these things that you have to hold in your hand when you're designing a space. And then even inside of that, like, even inside of sustainability, what are the metrics that you really care about? Because you can't care about
sustainability.
Sustainability is a
Huge umbrella.
It is.
I need to throw a plug for the new framework with mindful materials. No, I'm sorry.
Very helpful.
It is helpful to frame, yes, but I agree. That's
social,
very, very well said.
I mean, the feeling is like, well, maybe they can all be important, but like, you get good at one, and then that's like a layer, and then it's time to add a new layer, and then like all of a sudden the things that maybe you used to have to think about are just like written in like well-being, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, now it's not even a box you check, it's kind of just part of how you work.
Absolutely do.
And I do feel like our industry has kind of grown in these layers.
I think we were talking to John Strassner on Sunday. Have you met John?
Yeah, I just had breakfast with him.
Who has not had met John? But he always said something that I was like, man, that clicked with me before, and you just reminded me again. It's like, don't let perfection stand in front of good, because you can't do it, right? Like, you know, those little layers and those baby steps really, they add up, and eventually you will have created something of perfection.
Shows the lesson, don't be perfect, but do the most good.
Yes, there we go.
I like that.
Because we can't pick out the perfect material all the time that hits all of those check boxes, even though we try with those contractors.
It's gonna be worth it.
So
not.
with the layers conversation and being 4 years in, and we are just babies and like the beginning of our podcast, you know, what is some advice? We've been asking people advice for NeoCon. I'm like, what is some advice that you would give us? You know,
Sure. I almost want this advice to go to your guests.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is not as much design related, but it can apply to anybody. The guests that I found to be the most attractive and interesting are the ones that speak with joy and authenticity, right? They speak from the heart. And so many guests I have, they're so focused on saying the right thing that they don't, they lose all the passion and connection behind it. So I started to explore this. There's 3 numbers. These are really cool.
Oh, okay.
55, 38, 7.
55, 38, and 7.
So
That's a weird grouping.
Okay.
It's a weird
I'm excited about it. Edge of my seat.
It does add up to 100. So
Okay.
55% of what I'm communicating to you is coming through my body, right?
Sure.
Through my face. 38% is coming through how I say what I'm saying. And only 7% is actually what I'm saying. And unfortunately, I feel like so many of the guests prepare themselves by focusing on the
7%.
instead of thinking like, how can I, especially in a podcast where sometimes it's just audio, like that 38% is everything.
Yeah.
It's like how you say what you say matters way more than what you say. And so I could have the most brilliant guest and they just fail to connect with the audience because they just so focused on the content. So anyways, when I prep my guests, I always try to help them just stay in that 38, 55 line.
You know, I actually love that you say that too, because when we were talking about the potential of this even happening, we were like looking at other design podcasts, and it that 38% wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know.
There's
I
so
know
much
I'm
of that out there.
passionate about what you're saying. I just cannot stay focused with it because it is like, what was that? Or
Monotone.
and then just having too many like proper
today.
words, and it's like, I will, in my mind, I'm like, I can never speak like that, so it's not attainable for me. So then I'm like, next, even though I probably relate with them like 98% of the time. So it's kind of nice to just be able to be goofy and show why.
You don't listen to a podcast to basically read a white paper. You listen to a podcast to hear other people. You want to learn from people that you can't physically be in a room with. So why would you want a white paper out of that?
Yeah.
Right. I totally appreciate you sharing that with us. And all of the time you've given us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
If anybody could see what we're seeing out
I
there.
know, it's so crazy out there.
chaos, and we are in this wonderful like cocoon of sound and warmth. Should we ask him though what his tip for NeoCon is? Just make sure.
we need
Like,
to, like-
how do you survive NeoCon?
Or how would you recommend
What would
it?
anybody to come through the space? Like anything priority wise?
I'm going to quote a friend.
Do it.
Chris Stolpen is his name. And he told me a long time ago, drink half as much as your coworkers.
Oh my god.
Oh man. Check.
Check that.
Okay, yes.
All right.
That's the key.
We got shoes, we got all, that's a good one.
I love it. That's the drink number.
Right.
Oh my deal. That's great.
You three,
Have to do some
I mean this. You're such a joy. And
Thank you.
I can't wait to follow you and see
We
what
are gonna all have to talk again.
Yeah.
Maybe in a little bit
seriously.
larger of a space, but maybe not.
Yes.
Maybe not.
Yes.
And come visit us in Alaska.
That would be amazing.
Come on.
And
We'd love to.
we'll record for the Imagine a Place podcast.
Yeah.
We love that. Fantastic. 2 for 1. Record one for ours. Record one for you.
There we go.
You get to see our cool studio that they have. It's pretty awesome.
It's fun. Sweet. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Doug. Let's emerge.
Complementary Colors is a production of MCG Explore Design, an architecture and interior design firm located in beautiful Anchorage, Alaska. If you'd like to hear more future episodes, be sure to subscribe to Complementary Colors wherever you find podcasts.